Reading from the HARBOUR, from the most ancient of texts, from the book of Amenemope. Beware of robbing the poor and of oppressing the weak and helpless. Raise not your hand against the aged, nor address an elder with improper speech. Let not yourself be sent on an evil mission, nor stand in the company of those who have performed it. Rage not against those who injure you, nor on your account answer them. The wharf falls from under the wicked, and a flood of water washes them away. The north wind comes down to end their hour on earth, and turns into a tempest. The thunder roars, and the crocodiles come without mercy. Let us steer a righteous course, so that we may carry the wicked across without becoming like them. Raise them up, give them your hand, and then leave them in the hands of God. Fill them with the food of your kindness, that they might be satisfied and repent. Another thing good in the heart of God is that you pause and think before speaking. From the HARBOUR, from the most ancient of texts, the book of Amenemope. Let us steer a righteous course, so that we may carry the wicked across without becoming like them. Another thing good in the heart of God is that you pause and think before speaking. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Akwaba, welcome. Ank Uja Sneb. Life, prosperity, and health to you. Ank Uja Sneb. In the ancient language of Kemet, the Meduneta, the most ancient. Ank Uja Sneb. Life, prosperity, and health to you. Good morning and welcome to the space. You're inside of the Africa Forum. It is Running African. I am African, not because I was born in Africa. I am African because Africa was born in me. In the words of Asajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Appearances to the mind are of four kinds. And we'll leave you with that. Finish it for me. Appearances to the mind are of four kinds. Things either are what they appear to be, or they're not, and yet appear to be, or they are as they appear to be. You know, we've been saying this for many moons in this space now, Epitectus. And no time more than now is that saying relevant. No time more than now. Appearances to the mind of four kinds. We're going to take a quick break and come forward inside of the Africa Forum, Running African. By the way, just before I take the break, we're now broadcasting live once again on YouTube. So just go to irefm.net and you'll see the broadcast, the live broadcast pop up. So we are on YouTube at irefm.net. Thank you so much for joining us on YouTube already. Thank you so much for joining us on the 107s, 107.1 all the way to 107.9. We'll be right back.
With JN Money, you're not just receiving money, you're getting good vibes, plus easier, safer ways to receive. The time by JN Money is
now 17 minutes after 6 o'clock. Thank you so much for being a part of the Africa Forum, Running African, this morning. Gonna go conjuring, right before we go any further inside of the program. We have a lots and lots to come. I'll tell you what it is. All right, we're back with you inside of the Africa Forum. It is Running African. Thank you so much for joining us on the 107s, 107.1 all the way to 107.9, on the internet at irfm.net and on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us. We're broadcasting live on YouTube, so you can watch for free. Yes, we do have to say that. On YouTube, go to irfm.net, tell your friends about it, and watch for free. We've got an interesting program lined up for you this morning, and I'm going to tell you about it. Our vision, of course, is to reunite the African family for development. Our mission includes breaking the cycle of mental control, blazing new paths towards Africa's rendezvous with destiny, bearing witness, demanding change, understanding what it means to bear witness, crafting an African-centered agenda for change and development, all the while honoring my moral obligation to remember. Lots and lots happening globally, around the world, globally. Can't remember the last time the entire world was focused on just one thing. Just one thing. Can't remember that. And doing almost exactly the same things. Can't remember that either. Interesting times we're living in. Interesting times. And we're going to be talking about some of that today. So thank you once again for making it the Africa Forum, Running African. My name is Kabu Ma'atkiru. Kimar is in the house. Good morning, Kimar. Our cameraman, as usual, on the grounds. Sure you'll see him from time to time. We're looking at this single event labeled COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19 pandemic. It's spawning a plurality of outcomes. It's ushering a new era. We've been talking about that. By the way, just to underscore something here. So we started talking about SARS-CoV-2, I think the first Sunday in March. Now today's the 26th of April. So all the programs that we have done from the first Sunday in March up to today, the strategy is that the topics we've been discussing and the way we've been discussing these topics is deliberate, just so you know that. So that if you missed the first program, I'm going to ask you to go to my YouTube site and watch the first program, because everything we said in the first program, a lot of what was said in the first program and how I laid out the groundwork for how we'd be covering this pandemic is relevant to this morning's program, just so that you know. So it was always building up to some of what we're going to be talking about. And if you take note closely, all the programs leading up to now have been building up to something. And so this morning is in line. It's like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You understand what I'm saying? So it would be good to go to my YouTube channel, Real Kabu, R-E-A-L, Kabu, K-A-B-U, for the rebroadcasts. And remember, we're live on irfm.net on the IRFM channel, but we do have the rebroadcasts on my own YouTube channel, Real Kabu. Now, one of the things I want you to do is to revisit the first 2 programs at least, and definitely the first program, and especially where we laid out the role of the media. Remember, we talked about media and the role of media in times of crisis, broadcast media, print media, you name it. So a lot of what we talked about, we'll be focusing on this morning from different perspectives. So I'll tell you about that in a while. We look at the 4 options of media. We talked about manufacturing consent. Do you remember that? Manufacturing consent. This is something that I want you to pay some attention to as we go through the discussions this morning. And all right, so just to go forward in terms of looking at the outcomes and the new era that we see SARS-CoV-2 ushering in. So in a little while, we'll only be talking about the anti-COVID-19 period, or the pre-COVID-19 period, or the post-COVID-19 period. It has changed everything. In the post-COVID-19 period, we will have to adapt quickly to a new normal of constant or ongoing social distancing. We'll have to embrace a new norm of virtual reality in socializing, working, education, commerce, medicine, and we've been talking about that, law, religion, we've seen that, and worship, security, entertainment, and of course governance. That is critical. So the change is coming. It's a new era that is being ushered in. We're watching it really, really, really closely. We can't afford to be taken by surprise by the predictive programming. We can't afford to ignore the predictive programming. Now, pre-millennials will have to adapt and quickly bridge the digital divide or be declared obsolete. And be declared obsolete by artificial intelligence, uploaded to the Internet of Things. We talked about that last week. And downloaded from the Internet of Things to reside on the thumb or the dumb drive. It is what it is, in social isolation. We're looking at the aging populace, and we must pay some attention to our elders. We must. The novel order of integration by way of the Internet of Things will at once negate humanity. And there's talk of transhumanism. Look that up. Because we're seamlessly, it appears, merging into the world of things, embodying animals, machines, robots, cyborgs. I know it sounds like a conspiracy, but it is already happening as we speak. It's choreographed and it is guided by a supreme artificial intelligence. To be understood as a logica suprema. It is simple, free from emotional distractions, free from errors. Errors being the new nomenclature for what was previously called sins. Because if you're now cyborg, no need to talk about sins. Now you're talking about errors. Once again, The Matrix is not a movie. The Matrix is a documentary. Watch it again. That's where we're going. So this new order, under the all-wise guidance of artificial intelligence will not merely facilitate, but it will dictate without fear of contradiction the optimal population of things and category of things and profitable functioning of a technocracy and the technocracy. So that in the scheme of things, are we destined to be merely one of those things? Unless, of course, we use this narrow window of opportunity to unite around African spirituality to save our humanity, our sovereignty. Some of the things we have to think on, even as we quarantine, self-isolate, social distance, and so on and so forth. So thank you so much for joining. We have a lot to talk about. This is an interesting morning. It's an important morning. For me, I'm very happy to welcome to the space someone who is no stranger to the Africa Forum. As a matter of fact, a friend to the program since 1998, or is it 97? 97, 98. So every time there is something as big as this, and we feel that this is big, we reach out to this scientist, whistleblower, yes, author, Harvard graduate, he's the author of the book Emerging Viruses. Do you remember that book? That was one of the first books that we read in the Africa Forum Book Club as early as 1998 or 97, I think. Emerging Viruses, AIDS, Ebola. Do you remember that book? The author is Dr. Leonard G. Horowitz. He's a whistleblower. He's a Harvard graduate, public health doctor, vaccine whistleblower, and so much more. I'll tell you about him in a little while. He's been heralding the secreted solutions for the sick and tired. Lots of testimonials. Do you remember the movie I Am Legend, starring Will Smith? Well, if you recall, Will Smith in that movie said, and I'm going to quote him now, he said, "I firmly believe that it is quite highly possible that the AIDS virus is the result of genetic warfare testing." That's Will Smith speaking to Barbara Walters during a 2008 interview. And then he reflected on Dr. Horowitz's book, Emerging Viruses, AIDS and Ebola, Nature, Accident, or Intentional. And the movie that came as a result of being inspired by Dr. Horowitz's book was called I Am Legend. Now, there are others. One of my favorite movies, for many reasons, is one called Inception. Inception is not a movie. It is a documentary. And this is why we're going to talk about predictive programming this morning. Predictive programming, viruses, media, and SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19. So Inception is also another movie that was inspired in part by the writings of Dr. Leonard G. Horowitz. So, a little about Dr. Horowitz, who will be joining me later on this morning. He's a graduate of Rutgers College, of Tufts University, of the University of Rochester, and of Harvard School of Public Health. He's done a lot. His publications include Walk on Water. Dr. Horowitz has inspired many. He's one of those persons who we refer to as a whistleblower. Hollywood has spun more ideas from Dr. Leonard Horowitz than probably any medical celebrity and conspiracy investigator in history. Films inspired by Dr. Horowitz, many books include The X-Files. You didn't know that, did you? So the X-Files movie, inspired by Dr. Horowitz books. Inception, as I just told you, inspired by Dr. Horowitz book. And I don't know if you've seen the movie Inception, but if you haven't, you should see it. It's a movie about stealing people's dreams. It seems far-fetched, but it's happening already. I Am Legend, as I said before, inspired by Dr. Leonard Horowitz's book. The Patriot, inspired by Dr. Leonard Horowitz's book. World War Z, inspired by Dr. Leonard Horowitz. And also Outbreak. You've seen that movie called Outbreak. And many television segments. One of the most fascinating things about Dr. Horowitz is that the government and the drug industry officials cannot directly refute his solid science backing his non-fiction books and his articles. His publications are so compelling that media propagandists have regularly hired skeptics to cripple Dr. Horowitz's credibility, his conclusions, and life-saving recommendations without actually refuting anything. For instance, top Justice Department advisors published a scholarly government report stating that some conspiracy theorists turn out to be true. Cass Susteen and Adrian Vermeule published that study that some of his conspiracy theories, because when they can't, you see, there's a thing, when they want to belittle you and devalue you and attack your credibility, they talk about conspiracy theories. And that is why we've moved from conspiracy theories in this space to embracing and talking about deep thinking. It's important for us to get there. Deep thinking. Nonetheless, though, they have talked about cognitive infiltration of extremist groups, just to muddy the waters. They recommended cognitive infiltration, whereby government agents or their allies acting either virtually or in real space and either openly or anonymously will undermine the intelligence of believers by planting doubts about the theories and stylized facts that circulate within such groups, thereby inducing beneficial cognitive diversity. In other words, intentionally spinning truth, seeding falsehoods, and controlling the social and broadcast media to plant doubts about everything from climate change to risky vaccinations are the ways and means used to control information and civilization. So Dr. Horowitz has been a leading critic of this covert method of mind control and population control, amounting to unfair competition and deceptive trade by pharmaceutical companies. In retaliation, the corporate-controlled media and Hollywood have regularly spun Dr. Horowitz's findings into frightening and confusing commercial success. So, conspiracy theory versus reality, surviving and thriving in a world of deception has been the focus for a long time of my guest who is going to come on later on this morning. But the associate editor of the Idaho Observer, Ingrid Castle, said of Dr. Horowitz, "I have openly declared Dr. Horowitz an American hero for having the courage to wage the most difficult of battles by exposing the exponentially growing public health disaster threatening the health and well-being of our entire nation." That being said, let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Horowitz's books, because one was one that we read in this space. AIDS, Emerging Viruses. And that's how I found Dr. Horowitz, through this book. Emerging Viruses, AIDS, and Ebola. And he asked a question, whether or not it was by design, by accident, what happened there, and so on and so forth. All right, other books include Deadly Innocence, Healing Codes for the Biological Apocalypse, Death in the Air, Space, Pearl Harbor, The Door of 528, Prosperity, Key of Love, also Love, The Real Da Vinci Code, DNA Pirates of the Sacred Spiral, Walk on Water, among others. All right? He's also written extensively and is extensively published in scientific journals. As a matter of fact, he himself is the editor of a scientific journal, Medical Veritas, Medical Truth Veritas, and publishes scientists and so on. He's peer-reviewed, just so that we know, for the academics who are listening in. And he's going to come on this morning to talk about some of the issues we're facing right now. As I said before, he's editor-in-chief of Medical Veritas International. So you can look up that scientific journal. Dr. Horowitz is an internationally recognized genius in the arts and sciences of natural healing. He's Harvard trained, as we said before. He's had 4 decades in the public health service, thousands of internet publications, dozens of peer-reviewed scientific articles, 21 award-winning books, 7 documentary films, and these have made him the world's most prolific and best credentialed champion of natural medicine and frequency rehabilitation. Dr. Horowitz has been at the forefront of shattering the addictive and damaging drug paradigm for nearly 40 years. This morning we're talking about predictive programming, viruses, media, and vaccines. Dr. Leonard G. Horowitz will join me live on the phone lines. All right, in addition to that, St. Catherine is still in lockdown. Old Harbour is in lockdown. And Dennis Gray, Dennis, you will recall, was one of the members of the group who traveled to Ghana, to Africa, just a few months ago. It seemed like years now. Just a few months ago. And he's a Pan-African. He's living in Old Harbour. He will be joining me on the phone lines from Old Harbour to tell me what the experiences are like there. We are watching closely what's happening in Portmore, and want to say good morning to all of the residents of St. Catherine, in particular of Portmore, and to say, be calm, keep calm, take a deep breath, because you're going to come out of this on the other side alive and ready for this. Do not buy into the panic. Do not buy into the upheaval, because that too is a part of the plan. Whether by design or accident or a crisis is just too good to waste. Today, by the way, April 26th is Intellectual Property Day. Yesterday was World Malaria Day. Donald Trump has been touting the malaria medication, hydroxychloroquine, and he's getting a whopping for it. You'd think the pharmaceutical companies, the bigger ones, were going to allow hydroxychloroquine, something that you can get for just little money, that everybody can get, to be the treatment for SARS-CoV-2. That was not in the plan. Donald Trump is also getting a lot of flack for talking about disinfectant in vaccines. But the question is, what is really in vaccines? And just give you time to think about that. Because people are so frightened and shocked and flabbergasted. I can't believe this must be a madman talking about putting disinfectant in vaccines. But what is formaldehyde? What is cowpus? What is cowpus? What is bovine fecal matter? What is really in vaccines? Well, you ask yourself that question and answer that question, because that's easy. Because what is in vaccine, everybody know. We all know. Well, we should know if we don't know. So, anyway, I digress. So, Dennis Gray is going to join me from Old Harbour in a little while. And then later on in the program, just around 7 o'clock, we're going to be talking to Darian Henry. Darian is a principal of Cumberland High School. He's a public relations officer for the Association of Principals and Vice Principals. He's also an executive member of the Jamaica Association of Principals of Secondary Schools. Going to be looking at poverty, classism, and education in COVID-19 Jamaica. Now, Darian wrote an article recently that was published. Was it in the Glean or the Observer? Shamara, should I get that article, please? If you could email it to me. Or Viv, could I get the article, please? Written by Darian Henry. Also, this morning, we're going to be hearing from, interestingly enough, our intention this morning was to link with the Morella Discovery 2 cruise. The Jamaicans were the only ones left on the ship. I've been told that they cannot speak and should not speak to the media. That is illegal for them to do so, and if they do so, they're going to be facing sanctions, disciplinary measures, and so on. But I have been talking to different people, and I know what's happening on the cruise. Up to this morning, they still hadn't heard anything definitive from the Jamaican government about whether or not they'll be coming home anytime soon. Up to this morning, they are at their wits' end. They have been drifting on the high seas for a long time now. As it is, they are stateless. And this is a thing that we must underscore, that in the middle of all of this, we have made some Jamaicans stateless. And I say again that could be me, that could be you. But these Jamaicans are now stateless. There are many who are in other places across the world. You know smoke and mirrors? Do you know what that means? Well, look it up. Smoke and mirrors, if you don't. If you checked the last or the second to last press conference, just after it came out that the 45 were drifting at sea and so much was happening, and they had gone to Portugal, weren't accepted, they'd stopped into Jamaican waters, they were sent off, and they ended up in England, Southampton. At that press conference, what all the principals did, who talked about it, from the Prime Minister down, Attorney General, Minister of Foreign Affairs, what they all did was to deflect and to blind the journalists with smoke and mirrors technique. Because they widened it. And they said there are many Jamaicans who want to come home. And they're sheltering in place. And we're going to try and get them home. Many Jamaicans. And immediately we are hypnotized watching that pendulum. Many Jamaicans all over the world want to come home. Okay, fine. They are not stateless. We know where they are, we know who they are, and we're waiting for them to come back home. Those who have come home and were turned away are a different kettle of tea altogether. Those who came to Jamaica within Jamaican waters and were turned away is a different situation. Totally. So that pendulum that you see swinging, that hypnosis that they're conducting, be not hypnotized by what they're selling. These 45 Jamaicans on the Morella Discovery 2, this is the same ship that went into the Port Royal, the big opening of Port Royal. It's the same ship, Morella Discovery 2. These Jamaicans who are crew members, who are workers on the ship, are still stranded on the ship. Now, the question is, when will they come home? As I said before, I've been talking to them, and I know what the situation is. So we'll talk about that later on this morning. But they're in dire straits. They're not being paid. They miss their families. It's cabin fever situation for them. It's stir crazy situation for them. The psychological damage that is being done to them is unthinkable, that the government of Jamaica would render its citizens stateless. And too many Jamaicans are okay with that, you see. Too many Jamaicans are okay with that. I saw a news item last night where the people in Hanover were calling, some people in Hanover calling on the government of Jamaica to block off Hanover because they don't want no strangers to come in. And I don't know where it came from, but a tear fell out of my eye, just one eye, not the two of them, just one. Because the people are clamoring for that which will distance them from the rest of the people. The people are clamoring for that which is really bad for them. You know, so the artificial borders that divide this little island into parishes, Hanover, Manchester, St. Mary, Portland, suddenly become spaces, real spaces, hard spaces, in which we seem and behind which we seem to want to further divide ourselves. So the conquerors and the imperialists and the neocolonialists and the colonialists and the enslavers have done a pretty good job on us, that we would want to declare that the rest of us are strangers who would seek to interact with the rest of us across this island. Predictive programming, mind control, and there's much more that people are calling for. And where there is more chaos, the people will be calling for stricter measures to protect them from the chaos. Order ab cow, did I say that right? Order out of chaos. That's a strategy. Order out of chaos. So, all right, let me go to later on this morning. We're going to be speaking with my Pan-African friend, also no stranger to this space, electrical engineer, PhD in electrical power systems, North Carolina A&T State University, Dr. Audley Paphos Darmond. Dr. Darmond, of course, is no stranger to the Africa Forum. He has a postdoctorate research fellow in renewable energy systems from Nagoya University in Japan. He's a former telecommunication systems engineer in the BPO sector. And he's the original BPO telecommunications engineer in the Montego Bay Free Zone, the Jamaica Digiport International, if you recall that. He's got a lot of information. He's going to be talking to us about the history of BPOs in Jamaica and much more, because listen to his credentials, right? Electrical engineer, Pan-African, has a PhD in electrical power systems, a postdoctorate research fellow, renewable energy systems, former telecommunication system engineer. Just listen to all of that. So we have a lot of questions to ask my good friend, Dr. Audley Darmond Paphos, when he comes on, as we look not just at the history of BPOs in Jamaica, but we want to talk a little bit about other stuff. You know what I'm talking about? All right, quick break and we'll be right back.
Wash hands with soap often or use Benjamin's rubbing alcohol or hand sanitizer when on the go. The time, courtesy of Benjamin's, is
Now, 6:55, you're inside of the Africa Forum. It is Running African. I'm going to go to the phone lines now to speak with my friend and brother, Dennis Gray, also Pan-Africanist, who last time we saw Dennis, we were in Ghana, in Africa together. And now Dennis is there in Old Harbour, part of St. Catherine, where the St. Catherine, the entire parish, the fourth largest parish in the island, on the island, now in lockdown. Good morning, greetings, my brother Dennis Gray. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, Sister Kabu. And how are you doing?
I am doing good if you are doing good, my brother.
Yes, I'm doing the partial lockdown myself here.
Yes.
Because I don't know what the disease is like. None of us seem to be knowing.
Mm-hmm.
They only can give, the WHO only can give recommendation, but then we, in the situation, have to tweak it to our best advantage, right?
Exactly. And we have to understand it at many different levels. Not trusting enough things what we don't trust, but we don't want to be accused of causing public mischief. So, but we don't trust plenty of things because we have experience over time. But tell me what's happening in Old Harbour now. You said to talk about the partial lockdown. So this is St. Catherine. When is it lockdown? When do you go out?
Well, in the first week, it was our old bundle. It was all over the media, right?
Mm-hmm.
They gave us, they put it in an age group and then they put alphabetical order, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the senior citizens, the vulnerable, the weak, the poor, they gave us 2.5 hours to shop. Okay, 2.5 hours to shop.
Wow.
Right?
Ooh. Yeah.
That means that you have to get the money, go to the store and reach back home.
Within
10:30.
2.5 hours. Wow.
Yeah.
Is that enough? Is that enough?
No, but you see on the media, Kabu, you see the mayhem was in Spanish Town.
Mm-hmm.
That Old Harbour was the same thing. It was a smaller replica because we're a smaller town.
Mm-hmm.
But it was chaos. I go up the road and I come back home. And I say, well, I have some water, which was the main thing, and bear it out. Then he come back on the next week and modify it. And if you want to know what a difference that they make, you should come Friday. Yesterday, everything was like post pre-COVID weekend, shutdown weekend. Everything was back to normal. Because people get time to shop, get their money, and go home in time.
Okay, all right. So there was a change, and it's a bit better now.
Yeah, he gave us 2 days, but my thing is, did they figure out that didn't they figure out that this would happen?
Well, that's the question that everybody's asking. Weren't you aware that if you lock it down so suddenly with just 2 shopping days, or not just shopping days, but just 2 days for people to go, that it would be chaos?
Exactly. And you see, it was the Tuesday night before the Wednesday morning.
Right. Exactly.
It came out 6 o'clock and said, as of tomorrow morning. So, people was frantic. They wasn't scared because they said, forget about the COVID thing. We don't have no food, we don't have no money. And if we go to the road there, forget about social distancing. Forget about whatever they say. They're not in here, they don't know what's going on. Him up in whatever it is. And it was all over the media. Till him have to retract now. And gave us 2 days.
Yes.
Which was Friday and Saturday. Then on top of it, Kabu, the market was closed. You figure that out?
Yes, the market was closed. And the question is...
Last week Friday.
Right.
Last week Saturday, the market was closed.
Yes. So is it open now?
Saturday, the one before.
Before. Is it open now?
Yes, it opened yesterday.
Right. So
and everything was normal.
Okay. So after the upheaval the week before, then things kind of a little bit better now, or much better now.
Well, he came back and we tracked what he did.
Mm-hmm.
What he did, and everything is back to normal.
Okay. Okay.
And everybody accept that this thing is serious, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Every little man on the street.
True.
The boys are on the road.
True.
So you don't have to tell them say it's serious.
Mm-hmm.
But they need time. You can't tell a hungry man they must wear a mask and him must keep in them house and him no have no money and him not have no food.
It's a very
Western
weird.
Union them was ram up.
Yeah.
Even though they're still full up, but
Yeah.
you know, we understand that because we only have like 1 or 2 Western Union up here.
But then.
The banks them closed.
Wow.
NCB Scotia closed. Them say must go to ATM. The
So-
ATM them no lot of money. Come up to yesterday, last night I passed up the road. I see the archive truck unloaded money. Because the ATM can only hold so much money.
Mm-hmm.
And
So-
that line is like 24/7 line.
Wow.
You know, so this thing wasn't start out, man. Everybody appreciates that this thing is serious, Kabu. But, you know, it's the way you implement it, man.
Yeah. So what would you want to see happen now in terms of the implementation?
This is fine. This two-day shopping
Right.
is fine.
Okay.
And
Okay.
as far as the lockdown is concerned, you know, nobody wants to see this thing spread. So that is the way of the curfew and the shutdown will kind of ease the spreading. Because as you see, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger every day. And a lot of people, everybody wearing masks now in all our eyes. If they don't have a mask, they wear a kerchief. And what I think they should do too is on these buildings they should have a sign, no mask, no entry. Because some people don't get the message yet, you know.
Yeah.
A few, I
Yeah.
should say. But no mask, no entry. Because I went to an institution yesterday, Friday, and the guy said, I sit on the door, no mask, no entry, and nobody fussing with the security guard. They get their mask and they go in, right? And they need to do some more tweaking and ask the people on the ground what they want.
Yes.
The Western Unions, them, you have 1 Western Union or 2.
And there is
I
talk.
mean,
And there is talk now of people are calling for Jamaica to be locked down. But if St. Catherine is any indicator of what will happen in the nation, obviously this is really the worst idea.
No, it's not good, not good.
No, not a good idea at all. And for
Not a
those who
good
are
idea,
calling
sir.
for that, they need to
Because,
just stop for a minute and think about that.
Because Spanish Town is much bigger, and it's what up now. They're not straighten out in Spanish Town. It's at Portmore. The Portmore is a party
Yeah.
yesterday because nobody, you know, the people have to get their money so they can buy food to go home in time.
So how are
And when
you?
you have to-
So are you socializing even though you're keeping your social distance? Are you mainly talking to people on the phone, or what's the community like?
Well, when I get my time, when I go up the road here, because some people can afford to stock up, some people can't afford. But the guys I talk to, they said they're all for the lockdown, they're all for the curfew, but it's the way it is implemented.
Okay.
They can buy their bottled water, they can stock up on their food, right? So, but it's the way, the time, the system is giving them to do that, right? Because the banks are closed. 2 banks are closed in all over
So
here.
where people getting money from? Because if the 2 banks close, the ATM keeps running out of money. Everybody have a card? How are it going money-wise?
Well, even the post office, post office, one thing I'm sorry for, Kabu, is the pensioners, 4 people, and the people that one minister said, the vulnerable. The man is vulnerable. I mean that you want him to keep in them house. But when him go to get his pension money run out.
Wow.
What's the minister sell money down?
Yeah, wow.
And they must
This is
come back
this
up.
is this is really sad.
The woman stunk on the bench in the post office a cry.
Oh,
Because they have the book, but
breaks
no
my
money.
heart. Yeah. Breaks my heart.
The situation is a pretty up at the corner. Man.
Yeah, we are not at a level where we can lock down Jamaica, or even lock down a parish in the way we're doing with St. Catherine. too many things need to be put in place for vulnerable people like the pensioners, who go to the post office and there's no money, sitting down on a bench and crying. Who goes to the bank and there's no money. The elderly.
The bank is closed.
Well, the bank is closed.
NBC said until further notice.
NCB, and we know that so many banks are closed across Jamaica, both NCB and also BNS. What we should learn on the other side of this, though, is also going to be directly related to how we deal with banking in Jamaica. And one of the things that's coming out on the other side of this is we know it's a digital currency. So everything is connected. Everything is connected. But thank you so much, Dennis. I'm glad that you are at least okay. You're sounding good, and you're it's a bit better for you now. And I think if it's better for you, it's better for the citizens also.
Thing,
yeah.
I'm all for this digital and online banking, but a lot of these poor people here, okay, they have the pension book. They don't have a bank account. And have you ever tried to open a bank account recently?
It's the hardest thing to do.
Okay, thank you very much.
It's the hardest thing to do. So what they're saying, so I heard the Prime Minister talk about that. We're going to talk about it later because we have another interview coming up. But yes,
Okay.
so these are
Have a great
issues.
day.
These are issues that will have to be dealt with, will have to be talked about. And as they arise, to raise them up in the spaces to say these are the issues that we're facing. But a lot of it is all out of chaos. Thank you so much, Dennis.
Yeah, man.
And
we
stay
have
safe.
a dictatorial democracy in Jamaica now, in our town now. That's what we have.
What you have?
Semi-dictatorial democracy.
Semi-dictatorial dictatorial democracy.
Yeah.
Right, and it's surveillance.
You have
And
to
it's,
figure that out.
yeah, I know I forget out already, and it's surveillance dictatorship also that's coming. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you
Okay,
so
bye-bye.
much.
Pay bills, transfer funds, check account balances, and more with Sagicor eBank. Download the app in the Google Play Store. The time by Sagicor Bank is
Now, 7:07, semi-dictatorial democracy is what my friend Dennis Gray is telling us exists now in St. Catherine, also in the island. We know also that we're moving to surveillance dictatorship. It's part of the process, order out of chaos, manufacturing consent. The media is complicit. Well, we understand that there are now 305 SARS-CoV-2 cases in Jamaica, confirmed cases of the coronavirus disease, with the addition of 17 new cases over the last 24 hours. The 17 new positives are comprised of 6 males and 11 females. 16 of the 17 range in age from 21 to 59 years. And additional information on the 17 new case is to be made available later. Further, 12 of the 17 are employees in the workplace cluster in St. Catherine. 1 is a contact of a confirmed employee. 2 are contacts of a confirmed case, and 2 are under investigation. 167 of the 305 confirmed cases to date are employees in the workplace cluster in St. Catherine. So in addition, Jamaica now has 34 imported cases, 9 cases that are local transmission with no epidemiological link, 70 that are contacts of a confirmed case, 167 that are local transmission related to a workplace cluster, and 25 that are under investigation. So far, 2,868 samples have been tested, 351 over the last 24 hours. Of the 2,868, in addition to the 305 that have been returned positive results, 2,552 are negative and 11 are pending. So that's a lot of numbers. All right, we're going to go to the phone lines now, where my friend Darian Henry is standing by. Darian Henry, as we said to you earlier, is the principal of the Cumberland High School here in Jamaica. He is the public relations officer for the Association of Principals and Vice Principals. He's executive member of the Jamaica Association of Principals of Secondary Schools and a former broadcast journalist. Good morning. Good morning to you, Darian. How are you doing?
Good morning, Kabu, and to your listeners, good morning. How are you?
I am well, if you two are well.
Well, I'm trying to be well.
Yes, yes. Darian, let me just congratulate you on the article you wrote last week. Was it last week or earlier this week?
Last Monday.
Last Monday. Brilliant article, well written and touching on the core of some of the issues that we must raise in this space at this time regarding education, access to education, access to resources as Jamaica remains under partial lockdown and curfew and so on. Now, what made you? I know that you, as a principal, would be, experiencing a lot of what you wrote about. But what made you thought, I have to get this out? This has to be published.
All right. Thanks again, Andrea, for inviting me to your program, and I'm very happy that I got a platform to elucidate some of the real issues affecting education. As you can imagine, Jamaica is under the gun of the SARS-CoV-19 virus.
Mm-hmm.
The industry or the sector that will most likely be impacted more significantly outside of politics and finance and so on is education.
Mm-hmm.
We have nearly 1 million children in the system across infant, primary, secondary, and up to tertiary.
Mm-hmm.
But as you can imagine, the blowback from this would be significant. When the virus itself came upon our shores, certainly the industry wasn't ready for this. The Ministry of Education, I can disclose, they were putting us on guard at least a week before that certainly the sector would be impacted.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of a plan to put the sector in a state of preparedness,
Yes.
that would have been impacted. I must say, though, Andrea, that Jamaica is faring a little better than many other countries.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is, I don't live in many other countries.
Right, this is where we live, yeah.
I'm a Jamaican principal,
Mm-hmm.
and I have superintendents over for nearly 1,000 students in a system-wide situation. But what is happening really, though, is that the imbalances in the sector, the imbalances in education, the inequalities in education is now rearing its head more and more as a result of this digital divide. So the system has shifted to remote learning, to virtual learning, to online home-based learning.
Yes.
But what you find is that a large proportion, and the studies to be done, but the anecdotal feedback that we are getting, yes, is that a large swath of our students across the country are not benefiting any at all. A large swath of students are not being engaged any at all. My biggest concern, though, is that the system does have a large number of students who are special learners, students who are reading way below their grade level, who need that kind of cognitive and literacy stimulation. Those students are not impacted. Just this morning, I read a story in the Gleaner, which drove to the heart of what I was talking about, where the parents of special needs children who need stimulation, cognitive stimulation, they're struggling, and they're struggling in immense ways. Yes? So the system is now under stress. There's no question at all. The system is under stress from all angles. And
let us break it down. Let us break it down, Darian, because it is true, and you're talking about special needs students, you're talking about students who are vulnerable students, you're talking about, students access because of finances. And then there's another issue of, obviously, all of this, it is tied into classism, which is something that we have to look at seriously also within this conversation.
No question at all. No question at all. When I speak of the digital divide as one of the factors in the stress in education right now, is that the students, the schools and students that are more affluent would have no difficulty in at least continuing without limited disruption, so to speak.
Right.
So if
almost seamlessly transitioning to online because they would have had access to the resources because of the spaces which they occupy. Talk to me about that. You're deep in the system. You have a bird's eye view of what is happening in this.
I'll give you an example, and I'm going to give you a very poignant example. It's just 2 weeks ago, I had to send credit, $500 credit, to 2 of my students because we couldn't find them any at all. And when we did find them, they didn't have access to a device. They didn't have access to money. Their parents were out of work and so on. But they wanted to upload their SBA so at least they would be compliant. I couldn't sit by and allow 2 of my brightest students to languish in this way.
And it's interesting you said 2 of your brightest students.
Yes, yes.
Wow,
And you'll
yes.
find that the students who are well endowed academically, they are the ones who are going to be impacted because they're from poor homes. And what is happening now with the decline in employment across all sectors, and tourism is one of them as well, as you can imagine.
Yes.
Because tourism has lost thousands of jobs. Their children are in the school system and they are being impacted as well. So that is the long-term implication. The bigger picture for me, though, is the regression that our students, when I talk about regression, students are supposed to be making progress as the days and months and weeks and years go by. So they make incremental progress over time academically.
Yes.
But with what is happening now and the limitations in terms of outreach and stimulation from the home-based environment is going to be impacted significantly. And it's going to have some implications down the road. But I can't talk about that.
Right.
What we have to talk about is how we can adjust the education system to close the divide so those who don't have access will have access.
Well, what percentage? I know you haven't done the study, and I think that you are highly placed, you individually, leading probably the principals, to do this research, and I hope that the material is being collated even as we speak on the impact on education. But talking about, one of the things you said, this is going to have an impact down the road. But from your own perspective, so how then can it be configured to bring into the space the hundreds of children who are being left behind even as we digitize education?
It's going to take a while. It's going to take a significant shift in policy. It's going to take a significant shift in how we allocate resources in education. Because as it stands now, the system is replete with imbalances with how public education is funded and so on. So you do have schools that are well endowed, schools that have alumni, they have strong parent-teachers association and so on. But that would be slant to how the economics are. So students who are well off, their parents will be well off. But the others who are not well off, their parents are strugglers and hustlers. The question is, and this is where I want to bring the discussion, how do we close that? And do we have the will? Do we have the willpower to? Do we want to close this divide? Because this has been going on for quite some time.
This has been going on for a good while. And
Long time.
And so even if we were trying to bridge that divide from before now, it would have been much simpler in this time. So you asked the question, have you looked at it? How do we close it? Especially now.
Well, you see, Andrea, education.
But Darian, I did change my name to Kabu.
Kabu.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I've known you for over 20 years.
Yes, exactly. Right. So
I'm saying there has to be a seismic shift in mentality. Because, Andrew, Kabu, education is supposed to be the great equalizer. And note what I say. It is supposed to be the great equalizer.
That's a delusion.
But it's an illusion.
Right.
Do we have the will to flatten the inequalities and make sure that everybody have access? Because the question of access, Andrea, is a very funny one. Because you can go to school and you don't have the best access to the best of resources.
Right.
I'll give an example. At my school, in grade 7, I have more than 50% of my grade 7 students who are reading below grade 5. That's not even in doubt. And I think I wrote about that in the article.
Yes.
We have been trying, even before the closure of schools, to try to get 2 good literacy specialists because we got permission to do so. And I can tell you, each recruiting cycle, no one is interested. We can't find anyone. And if you do find anyone, you're not interested because the pay isn't good enough. It's contracted. You're on contract for 2 years.
Wow.
Yes?
Yes.
And you won't find those persons. what happened a couple of years ago, up to recently, we have lost quite a bit of our specialist teachers. So
Right, because there was that issue. There was that issue right before this where teachers were leaving the classroom in droves.
But the system has about 20,000 teachers, Kabu, yes? But there isn't equity in terms of distribution of talent and resources. So yes, you will have children going to school, but do they have access to effective and long-term that kind of educational stimulation? And that's part of the challenge. Now, what COVID-19 has done is to blow it wide open to show us that the system itself is really suffering from inequalities.
Yeah. So
it put on the table.
The education.
We are only reaching 15% of our students. 15%.
15% of your students you're reaching in this time.
We are reaching right now.
And
last week I was in the PTA group, still appealing to try to find parents and so on. But what I'm being told, a lot of the parents are now out of work, so they are making a big decision between buying data and buying food.
But Darren, I just got goose pimples in a bad kind of way when you say parents are making decisions between buying data and buying food. That's a reality. Now, to be fair, the ministry has been doing quite a bit. And last week they released their education and emergencies guidelines that give us school administrators at least some guide map as to how to treat with. But it's still a far way. In terms of the stimulus package that we heard coming out from the Ministry of Finance, well, obviously out of the government, to what extent are schools, principals able to draw down on any of that to assist students? Because you know your students, you know where they are, you know the homes that they're in.
Yeah.
Is anything like that in place?
Well, the stimulus package announced by the finance minister a couple of weeks ago is geared at assisting particularly hotel workers, line workers, and so on, who have been distressed as a result of being out of work.
Is there anything written in for education at any level, as far as you know?
No, the system continues to, because you see, Kabu, the schools benefit from 4 tranches. We're given financial support. And the financial support that you get is aligned to your enrollment and other factors, social premium, all of these factors go into funding a particular education enterprise or school. But the stimulus package isn't geared for schools. It's geared for people who have been impacted, hotel workers.
No, and I understand that, but I'm just wondering what is written in for, what is there in any case for, because the students you're talking about, do you have then any kind of reserve that the principals, the schools can pull down on, the regions can pull down on to identify the students? In your case, you have only reached 15% of the complement of your students. Anything that you can tap into to assist schools to reaching students who are the vulnerable students, the students at risk, the students who have no access, or it's just left to the schools to try reach them?
But before that, brilliant question. What I want to put a particular dimension here, right? Some of our parents with their children, because of how they view school and because of the low premium that they put on education, when they register their children, they give us false numbers that don't work.
Oh boy! So that's
yes.
Wow.
I can. Last week I was talking to my guidance counselor, and she was bemoaning the difficulty in trying to reach many of our children, but we're having difficulty. Why? Because they gave us false numbers. There's another dimension to it, and it goes to the heart of the status of the home and the instability in many of the homes. Let me give you some scenarios. You might have a child who lives with a mother, for example, and she goes to live with the father. The mother and the father don't talk enough. So when we reach the mother don't share the contact details for the father. You understand?
Yes, I understand. Right.
There's that dynamic as well that we have to treat it. Yes,
Darian.
You're not going to hear regular, but we have to treat with that as well. Now,
Right.
to your question about outreach from the school,
Mm-hmm.
nearly all schools, yes, have been recalibrating their internal resources to make outreach to our children.
Mm-hmm.
My school in particular, just 2 weeks ago, yes, we organized our care package for our particular students who are on the PASS program because we know the stories and we know the difficulties, yes, and we're able to get the parents in, yes, and they were able to benefit. Is that enough? No, it will never nearly be enough because the economic situation at the home-based level, when you drill down, it is terrible, Andrea. It is terrible. And we're not talking about students who are just on path, but students who are not covered on the path. But the school has a special welfare program to reach out to these children as well. We worry about those children. We worry significantly about these children.
So school is reopening tomorrow, right? And for many students, and I think it probably reopened for some already. And it's going to be homeschool, learn from home, online learning, and so on. You're saying to us, Darian, that majority of the students in Jamaica will not be able to access that.
I don't know if it's majority, but many students will not benefit. Many students will
I
not
think
benefit.
you'll find that it's majority.
Yeah.
But
many students
just
benefit.
looking.
There's another dynamic as well, because sometimes when we do reach students, they don't want to be reached, you know. They don't want to be reached.
So that goes to the
but it's our
parenting.
responsibility to
That
reach
goes
them.
to the parenting. So there's the dynamics of the parenting.
Very good. Very good.
There's also the dynamic of classism. And we want to, this is something that I know we have only 3 minutes left, Darian, but it's something that we have to underscore. And then we have to make an appeal to civil society. Because we've been talking to governments, on and off and forever, amen. Not much has changed regarding the inequities in education.
Kabu, unfortunately, classism won't leave education. It wasn't built in education,
But we have to build it out.
Education.
But Darian, we have to build it out. We have to mash it down, break it up. It means we have to
That's why
decolonize the curriculum.
That's why I'm calling for a different model of education. And it has to be progressive and it has to be sustainable. The model that we have now, where the haves get the better quality education and the have-nots don't get the best quality education, no matter policy, no matter, it has to change. And there has to be a significant transformation towards what you said, to mash it down.
Is there anything now in place, any discussions taking place for this to happen, this different model that will level the playing field, make it equitable, equality in education? It can work. I know it can. If you something you said earlier, do we have the will?
That is my question. Do we have the political will? Do we have the will to change our outlook, to change how we see things, to make education better? Yes. Many other countries, that's what I'm saying. For instance, Andrea, Kabu, I looked at Italy. Italy struggles, Italy doesn't spend as much money on education as does Luxembourg or Estonia or Switzerland or Sweden. They don't spend. But at least they're way ahead because they're spending, $11,035 per capita. Yes? But we're spending just about an average $17,000 per student, Jamaican dollars. Is that enough? Is that enough to cover the divide? I'm saying no. We have to break down that barrier, shift the education model in a significant way, and make access
and finally, Darian, there must be a short-term plan for what is happening right now to facilitate access to education by majority of Jamaican students who will not be able to turn up, whether it is turn up at them dining table, turn up in them living room, turn up in them yard, or wherever them turn up to online school tomorrow morning.
Yeah, that's true. Well, the telecommunication companies they have their job cut out for them as well, because in some parts of rural Jamaica, some people are not being reached any at all.
Well, that's another thing.
Discussion. That's a different discussion.
It's a different discussion. We're totally out of time. Darian,
That's
love the
it.
work that you're doing. We're going to continue this conversation because I want to talk to you some more about the model, this new model that you are proposing.
I'm working for my PhD paper.
Yes.
I'm working on a particular model, but I'll say more on that.
All right, great. I understand. I understand the code. Thank you so much. And congratulations on the PhD.
Thank you.
All right. Well, good.
Yes.
Darian Henry there, principal of Cumberland High School. He is the Public Relations Officer for the Association of Principals and Vice Principals and executive member of Jamaica Association of Principals of Secondary Schools.
Make it Megamart, your one-stop shop for the best value by far. The time by Megamart is
Now, 7:30, you're inside of the Africa Forum. It is Running Africa, and thank you so much for joining us.